Chapter 11. Original Sin. The title of this chapter is Original Sin. Original sin is featured in many of your religions, but, as with everything that has been filtered through the medium of the field, it is distorted. Original sin should be retitled Original Mistake or Original Misconception, because religion attributes to original sin a reason for humankind's suffering. And there is truth in that. But the reason that humankind suffers is because of the original mistake, the mistake that resulted in the fall. The fall was only one step in the divorcing of the angelic children that invested in the misconception of the fall from the rest of creation. There were and are continuing ramifications to that mistake, in that at the point at which the fall took place, when the experiment was agreed to and invested in, there was a volition that permeated the angelic children involved in the fall, and that was to continue with the experiment and to seek the effects of that experiment. So much faith and so much positivity, ironically, had been put into the experiment that, at the point that the light was switched off, as it were, and the angelic children were plunged into the darkness of the field and the darkness of the earth, as you see it now, at that point, each member of the angelic children had faith in the experiment. That faith and volition to see the experiment through was imprinted onto their vision of what the earth should be. In other words, the angelic children not only carried themselves into the fall and brought themselves into the illusion, but they brought with them a continuing volition to maintain and have faith in the experiment. Therefore, locked into their angelic creative matrix was and is a desire to continue with the experiment, because they believe, eventually it will all work out as we thought it would in the beginning. And because each soul revisiting the earth, time and time again, revisits its previous heavy matter matrix of beliefs and past experience, each soul newborn to the earth is invested with the desire to continue the original experiment through in order to see it to fruition. That is the meaning of original sin. Original sin is a pattern for chaos that, at a subconscious level, is a desire and a projection from the time of the fall. It exists on a subconscious level, entrapped within the heavy molecules of the physical and mental vehicles, and it exists as a stain upon existence, and as an invisible desire to maintain the earth as it is. This chapter is, in effect, as important as the explanation of the fall itself, because what I have just attempted to explain is the reason why it is so difficult to change the earth from its present state. Inbuilt into every person is not only a memory of the fall, but a desire for the fall to be right. A desire that all that debate was for something. A desire that the rest of the angelic host were mistaken, and you, all of you, were correct in manipulating matter and speeding it up for the glory of God. Do you see the twist? Do you see the subtle poisoning of your reasoning spiritually? It is as though a veil is thrown over your superior spiritual knowledge the moment you incarnate on earth. It is as though you are dropped into a poisoned well and have become saturated with that poison. This is why it is so important to flood the earth and yourselves with light, because in doing so, you eliminate and chase out of the dark corners of your soul the original pattern that pulls you back into a belief that this earth is as it should be. Particularly as you grow older and your resistance to the field on all levels diminishes, and it becomes easier for the field to control your physical and mental matrices within the matrix of the illusion. The field draws you deeper into itself as you grow older. The point of this book, from this chapter onwards, is to remind you that there is a way to change the effects of the fall. We have always said in the previous books, go within. And we say go within because you first have to rid yourself of the echoes of the fall that are encoded into your physical body. You have to realize that there is a God within, and a God without, i.e., without the earth plane that you have invested so heavily in. Within you, within the chamber of your heart, exists your angelic memory, and it is the angelic memory that streams light into every thought, and it is the angelic memory that allows you to create. At the moment you create, but through a filter, through the filter of a memory of the fall. And as a result of that, everything that you create is tainted and tinged by a desire to maintain the status quo on earth as it is. You have to resurrect the angelic mechanism for creation within you. And you do that by becoming still, by visiting the heart chamber, by pondering on what has been said in this and previous books, and by entering that state of creative bliss that allows you to change first yourself. First, you must change yourself so that you become a beacon for an advanced form of light, for a remembered form of light that goes back to a time before the fall, and a beacon of light that illuminates the atoms of the physical and mental matrices on earth in order to revive in them, within their molecules, the memory of how things were before the fall. Original sin, or original mistake, mistake in thinking and mistake in purpose, exists. But it exists not as a point in the past, but within each person as a potential for the present and the future. It exists within each being as a means of repeating the pattern, of progressing the investment in the fall through a period of degradation of matter to a time where everything is levelled, to a point where the fall starts again, and the beings involved in it, you, are reinvested into another similar illusion. To prevent that happening, you have to get rid of that original sin. Or shall we call it original belief? A belief that you were right. Is there anything more stubborn, then, than a fallen angel? Is there anything more stubborn than a fallen angel in believing for millennia and millennia, as you measure time from the point of the original fall, that they are still right, and that is still the right choice? In truth, they are, and you are, to be forgiven for that thinking, because the original intention was to glorify God, by showing him that he had invested in his children to the extent that they could go forth and present to him a new means of glory, brought about by their own actions in reordering the way in which matter was created. So the original intent was noble, but unfortunately the original intent was flawed, and as a result of that flaw, the fall took place. I would say to you listening to this book, that by this time, because of all we have said, you now know that you are an angelic being. Look at angels in your religions and religious imagery, at these great shining beings that are to be looked up to, these great shining beings that bring rays of light to those who will observe them and listen to them. At your core, from before the time of the fall, you are such a being. You are a being capable of wielding those magnificent, superior rays of godlight in order to create. There is a term, is there not, that runs through religion and through fable, myth and fiction of the fallen angel. You are not only that being of light, that angelic being capable of such wonderful, blissful, superior creation, you are also a fallen angel. How did you fall? You fell by choosing a darker path for the noblest of intentions, a darker path. As a result of that, you have suffered for millennia, placing your feet back on that path time after time, because you believe it at your core from the time of the fall to be the right choice in order to vindicate yourselves and to glorify God in greater ways. What this book asks you to do in your meditations is to look beyond, behind, and before the time of the fall, to rediscover not only who you are, but what you once were capable of. As part of the angelic host, as part of God's family, and as part of God's children, you, each of you, were the creator of worlds and realities. Wonderful worlds, splendid realities, beautiful vistas, beautiful scenes. And you are capable now. You still create, but you apply creation through the dark filter of the field to invest in a world that is far less than perfect. You switched a light off millennia ago. It is now time to personally and globally switch the light back on. That is how simple it is. To irradiate yourself with light in your meditations, to sit and to see yourself enveloped in the light from your heart center to the extent that all else ceases to exist for the time of your meditation, and you are placed in perfect brilliance. Do that and you switch the light back on for you personally and enable light to be streamed into the rest of this illusion in order to help others to see beyond the original mistake. You give them enough light for them to grow beyond that mistake, and to realize that it was just one action that plunged them into darkness, and a similar single action can take them out of the darkness again. Original sin is a cycle. The original mistake is a repeating cycle. Why? Because everything that you create in God's name is part of a repeating cycle. Everything you create as an angelic being is part of a repeating creative cycle. Therefore, everything you create as part of the fall, although it is a mistaken part of creation, has to repeat itself until such time as you say no, and until such time as you come full circle. You can either choose in the coming years to come full circle around the edge of the fall experiment to repeat it again, or you can choose to come full circle back into the light. The choice is yours. I have given you the tools and means to think your way out of the illusion you find yourselves in, to rip through it, to bring light into it, to rediscover yourself, and help others to rediscover themselves and to break the cycle, to bring it to a conclusion and say, that is one thing we tried that doesn't work. Now let us reinvest in our true heritage and try the things that do work, according to the way that God orders this universe. I also want to speak, if I can pull enough power through to clarify this, about the people that you would describe as leaders of the fall, and to talk briefly about those who have the most creative power invested in this illusion. Those leaders are the ones that believe most strongly in the continuance of the world as it is. Those beings are the ones who fight most strongly to order the world. And inevitably, they do it through treading on others and by seeking power. I would like to suggest to you something that you may not have considered. Those leaders, the ones that always come to power and manipulate and destroy others, are working, at heart and at core, from a desire to maintain the fall in order to glorify God. So their initial motive in doing what they do is not rooted in evil. It is rooted in a desire to bring back to God something that is now right, to bring back to God order, according to their subconscious, that says to God, "Here I am, Father," Father in the true sense. "Look what I have done for you. Look what I have done for you." And that strong desire, rooted in their heritage as one of the main instigators of the fall, propels them, through the negative effects of the field, to commit atrocities and distortions in the treatment of people in order to satisfy that need within them that they cannot understand consciously. It is power at any cost. It is order at any cost. It is my way and my views at any cost. Do you see? They are expressing their involvement in the fall at a highly creative level. It is an echo from their past, and they are expressing it in the only way they know how, by obliterating anything that is not of their vision, in order to satisfy that subconscious need to please God by saying, "I was right, Father," rather than realizing that there is no judgment from God. There is no punishment. There is no perception from God of the child as being a naughty child, or a child that is out of line. There is simply a desire from the Godhead to express ever greater bliss and love through that child, and the relationship to be one of mutual super-affection is the closest word I can get to it. What I mean by that is a love that you cannot feel on this level, because, as with everything else, it is filtered by the effects of the field, and therefore it is watered down and distorted. So, look to your leaders. Look to the people who have caused the greatest amount of destruction, upset, pain and control across the earth. Look to them with an eye that says, "Here is a leader. Here is an angel who is drawing on a memory that they cannot understand," and pour more light in their direction. Address those who seem to create mayhem with as much light as you can will towards them, and as much light as you can surround them with, because they are the ones, more than others perhaps to a certain way of thinking, who need that light to remember who they are, and to let go of the things that they are doing. Around leaders you have followers, and around leaders you will find those who originally lent support to those leaders in vocalizing to the angelic host that the way of the fall was the right way. So these subordinates or followers are locked into a repeating cycle with those who originally led, and who still try to lead through coming to positions of power time and time again. In other words, clusters of souls reincarnate together by the original magnetic effect of the urge to justify and continue the origins and effects of the fall. What I am saying is that the people who are around those people in power that cause such mayhem have been around them before as followers, because their subconscious desire brings them to a conscious magnetic attraction towards those that they follow. Often they do not know why they have such devotion and dedication to those they follow. They simply know that they have to follow them. Again, they are following a course that has been set up within them via that original sin or original mistake. So, next in your prayers, meditations, and your wielding of the light, you must encompass the followers of those who cause destruction and atrocity. You must see that light approaching their hearts, invading their hearts, illuminating their hearts and changing their hearts, reminding them that it is all right to let go, reminding them that they are creative beings, and that to invest millennia in the constant creation and recreation of a mistake is a tremendous waste of effort and a confining of creative ability. The leaders and the factions that you see causing such mayhem and havoc today have done so in the past, time and time and time again. The Christ said, "Forgive, forgive, turn the other cheek, love those who do harm to you." And that is precisely why he said it, understanding, as he did, that those who would seek to do harm to you are those who are most deeply invested in the mechanics of the fall. I hope that in concluding this chapter, I have given you food for thought. I hope that I have given you the opportunity to examine what has been said in the quietness of your own meditations, and to discover that within you there is that memory that locks you into this illusion. It not only locks you into it, but seeks for you to maintain it. seeks for you to keep feeding the field and maintain things as they are. This is a chapter about deconstruction. You have to address what is wrong in the world, but you also have to deconstruct what is wrong within yourselves and within the hearts of others. In doing that, you then change yourselves and you change the world. And change is what is needed to be pushed into the illusion. The illusion is in a state of stasis. We have talked at length about stasis being the end result of a fall cycle, until such time as the earth and a physical vehicle can again maintain the souls who are in stasis, so that they can, unfortunately, go through the same actions again. You are not only in stasis when you are outside of the cycle of physical incarnation, however, you are also in stasis when you are within the field. Yes, your lives progress, and yes, there is change, but only limited change. And the societies that are on Earth do not, in fact, change. They remain fairly static within the confines of the illusion that was set up so long ago. So there has to be change. And when you introduce change through light into the fall in sufficient strength, there is no fall. You eliminate the original discussion and original construction, and you replace it with the constant changing creative capabilities of the angelic children that you really are. You see things from the viewpoint of the fall down such a narrow corridor and through such a narrow spectrum. You hear things on so few frequencies, and you cling on to those because subconsciously you feel that they are right, and this is what you must invest in. Your true creative spectrum, your true area of being and area of sensation is infinite, is so much brighter, wider and joy-filled than the one you find yourself in at the moment. Work towards it. It is pointless me telling you what went wrong unless you, and we, can put it right. It would be pointless to give you all the information on the fall, every viewpoint, every instance, every happening of the fall, if you could only remain the same. What I am saying to you is that you can change. You can change. This world can change now. I am afraid I have debilitated Michael to a great extent. I will attempt questions, but I will limit them to 2, please.
Joseph, in the debate before the fall, and before we made the mistake of reordering matter and speeding it up to make it more positive, what was the perceived advantage of that to the angelic children? What did we think we would achieve by doing it?
In terms of the physical world, you felt you would achieve construction in a far shorter time without the mechanics of considering the effects of that construction. In effect, the fall was about a shortcut to construction. It was a group of you, of us, saying, there is a different way to do this. It is better, it is faster, and it takes out some of the steps. We are young children, and we have a viewpoint that you others have not examined and appreciated before. It is there in front of you. It is apparent to us, and should be apparent to you, but it is not. We feel that if we try this and succeed with this, you will be able to enhance your ability to create, and to create in far less time than it takes now. We feel that you spend too much time in contemplation of creation and not enough time in creation itself. It is an example that you find, again within the illusion and confines of the earth, of the new order seeking to overthrow the old order, looking for new ways and throwing out, as newly created aspects of God, that which the older, in your terms, aspects of God had considered, given weight to, examined, and found to be the correct way to create and to set up scenarios through which the angelic children could travel to enhance their abilities and their understanding of the divine creator. If you wish an analogy, it was youth kicking against age and wisdom, A faster and more streamlined way of creating evolution and of creating worlds on a physical level was what was hoped would be achieved. Fortunately, that attitude was tested just on one world. Fortunately, it did not apply to a greater area of physical creation, or we would be addressing a far greater number of souls, and there would be a far more rigorous effort by the millions and millions of souls needed in order to get a greater portion of fallen souls out of the illusion they had placed themselves in. Fortunately, it was suggested that this experiment be applied only to the earth, but for you and us, suffering the effects of that one small area that has been affected, it is hardly a comfort. Do you see?
Yes, thank you.
David?
Of the original leaders, have any of them managed to pull themselves out of the illusion?
When there is an awakening in one of the leading believers in and instigators of the fall, when one of those souls is elevated to the point where they remember who they are, unfortunately, because there is such a deal of grief, remorse and self-hatred for what they have accomplished whilst within the illusion of the fall, there is a danger that often they will seek, against advice, to reincarnate to put right what they feel they have done wrong. And the problem with that is that, not having contemplated for long enough who they originally were, and washed away the origins of the fall from their consciousness and volition, once they get back, they very often repeat again that which they have such great remorse about. Do you see what I am trying to say? Everything is a cycle, and we have to be extremely diligent when one of the leaders is at a point where they consciously, spiritually realize who they are and what they have done, that they do not plunge themselves into the start of the repeat of the pattern simply by wishing to put it right on earth. Far better for them to put it right by avoiding the earth and by removing themselves from the angelic children on earth, and therefore removing a PowerPoint for followers to gather around and for the field to feed on and amplify. In answer to your question, several of those leading souls have successfully made the transition, but that's not enough. When we describe leaders, we are describing a lot of souls, not just the ones that you see coming to prominence in your news programs. There are lots and lots of souls that work at various levels in society who were originally leaders. Many of the criminal element are such leaders. And organized crime is a way for the field to be fed. Organized crime is also, at its heart, a projection of leading spirits involved in the fall, answering a call from within them that is an echo back to the time of the fall that says, I need to seek power and overthrow society as it is and rebuild it in my own image. What I must say, and what I have tried to express within the chapter, is the need for light to be sent to everyone, particularly to those who seem to be the instigators of such cruelty, destruction, perversion, and distortion, particularly to those, because in sending light to them, you give them enough illumination to examine, of their own free will, what they are doing, who they are, and to change. Without the light, there is no change. That is the point, and is something we have addressed in the other books. Without the light, there is no change, because there is not enough power to make change. There is only enough power to contribute to, and be fed by, the field. So yes, several have escaped, but there are many more who repeat the pattern, and have repeated that pattern not just in society and in history as you see it, but have repeated that pattern in other societies from before the period of stasis, where you would not recognize society as you see it today, but you would recognize the trends of it. It is a case of old wine, new bottles. And if you were looking at the Akashic records, you would see that the same instigators of chaos in those times are the instigators of chaos now. I must applaud your desire to continue with this project, and as you can see today, we are channeling as much light as we possibly can in order to bring this information through and to put it in public hands as quickly as possible. Thank you.